Okay, so thank you guys for being here tonight, especially because you know me. And come on in. And I know you're probably like, what else could she possibly have to say to me that she hasn't already said? But there will be some new things that you'll hear tonight. So they asked us to spend 20 minutes on procedures, but I really don't feel like I need to do that because the procedures haven't really changed that much since last year. So there's just a couple things that I'll hit on here. So the take-home folders, you guys are really good at that. You kind of got that down. But in the calendar that's in there, this year I told the kids that we weren't going to do smiley faces anymore for a good day because we're just not going to spend the time on it. We're going to spend it on something else because they would get to where, their faces were so elaborate. And, I mean, it was still only 2 minutes, but when we're packing up at the end of the day, it's like, go, go, go. So the only time there will be something in there is if there was an issue that I need to let you know about. Most of the time, like really this, we're going into the 5th week of school now, and I've written in 2 folders all year so far. So like, your kids are just awesome. And the 2 that I wrote in, it was just one of those deals. I was like, oh no, we got to stop this right now. We're not going to keep going, but they've been doing great. So if you'll just make sure that it says sign. I really don't even, it doesn't matter to me if you sign or not. There's not any consequence for your kiddo. And since you probably won't be in the habit of looking at the behavior spot, if I ever do have to write in your kids, I'll probably send you a text too, so you know to look in there that night. But if you'll just clean them out. Every night would be awesome, but I'm realistic and I know that I don't do it every night. But at least once a week, if you'll get it cleaned out, that helps me see when there's something important in there that I need to take out. And then Tuesday folders will be the same. They'll come home every Tuesday with graded work in there and just sign it and return it. And then homework, I wanted to know from you guys how homework is going for you, how it's working for your kids. All right? Slow.
Yeah.
About how long does it take?
Compared to last year, I mean, I could get it done within maybe 30 minutes. This time, I mean, there's times where it's taken maybe additional 15 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, like I'd go pick up her older sister, we'd be sitting in the car waiting on her, and then that time frame we'd have everything done. Now it's we have to go home and finish.
Okay.
So
Okay.
For me, it's involved
It's
in
a little-
sports, so it's some nights we can't work on
Right.
because we get home too late.
Right. Yeah.
We do it all in one day.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do too. We do everything on Sunday night and or on the weekend.
Uh-huh.
The first time Friday night, she took it out and was like, I'm ready to do my homework.
No, I'm not.
I was like, I'm like, well, I hope you don't need help.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, come on in.
Yeah, homework's been tough so far.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
so much
you guys you can
Difficult.
sit right over here.
Yeah,
The time frame. Yeah, I totally understand.
And
So-
so a little bit more than last year.
I
Yes.
this weekend is
Sometimes we get home at
Yeah.
5.
I think it's good to give it all at one time, so you have the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It works. That's what we do too. It's usually like you do it all one night.
Yeah.
And then we're done. But really, like the most important piece of homework is that reading log. So like if you just cannot have a week that's awful and you can't get to it, it's not going to kill your kiddo. But please read. Please make sure that they're reading every night for 20 minutes. Well, Monday through Thursday for 20 minutes. And the book that goes home in their book bag, have them make sure that they're spending time on that one. They haven't been getting renewed as much because I was doing the TPRI, one of the reading assessments that we do, but I'm finished with that now. I wasn't here this afternoon in our normal reading block because I was at a funeral, but I'll be back tomorrow. So we'll get back into the swing of like new books coming home.
So
Often.
those books, how often are they going to be switched out?
It will be, they'll probably get 2 different books a week.
So do they need to be reading those books only or a different book?
No, it doesn't need to be those books only, but
Do they read those just at home or at school too?
they read them with me. Well, now that they're getting into higher reading levels, they're probably not reading the whole book with me because of time. So they'll read at least part of the book with me, and then the rest of it at home. They have it in their book box, so they can read it during their independent reading time if they choose. But some of them have, other books that they want to read during that time.
That's when she was fighting with me about. I told her she had to read something else. She had to read that.
They really, those books are on their reading level, so they really need to be reading those books. Now, if it's like, if
A higher book, like a chapter book.
instead of,
Yes.
is that what you're saying? Well, it doesn't have to be instead of, but like with Caitlin, what I do with my daughter is if she's got a book from Ms. Dean, she's got to read that book first, and then once that's finished, then she can go on, to another book. But they're going to be bringing home more like chapter books, and so in that case, it may just be a chapter of that book that they need to read, not the whole thing. And if they have a shorter book from me, and they've already read it before, it's still really valuable for them to read it again because that builds their fluency. It helps them build their reading speed. So even if they've had it before, it really is good to have them read it again so that they can get that reread in. And then those words that, the more frequently they see them, the less they'll have to spend breaking down the word and decoding it, and it becomes a sight word to them. And so then when they see it in another text, they won't have to take the time to figure out what that word is. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to say don't spend time reading other books because that's the whole purpose of reading is to read whatever you want. But those books that come home, that's really what's going to help them grow as a reader because it's on their reading level. Okay, so still kind of in the reading vein. That second page of the agenda is a reading level chart for like where their growth expectation is. It's the one that looks like this. So up here it's second grade. So in September, hello.
I think you told me to get the Edmodo code from you.
Oh, okay. Okay, hold on. Let me look for that. Here you go. What else? Were you in last year?
No, I didn't know they had Edmodo.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, she reads the book over and over again until the timer goes.
She reads the same one?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Have her read another book then.
Because I'll get another book out, and then she's like, no, I want to read this one. But then, whatever that.
Well, it's building her fluency.
So.
So,
Or whatever she read that.
Sammy Stuffit? Oh.
I felt bad writing it down. I was like, no, whatever.
No, right? That's fine, right? No, I would say, like, if it's in that 20-minute time frame, they finished it, then have them read
Oh, yeah,
something else. But if they're absolutely loving it, then sure, go ahead, read it again. Okay, so for September, second grader, we would expect them to be reading on a level 20 with a fluency of 60 words correct per minute. And so then you can see where the January level would be, and then the end of the year goal for May would be a level 30 at 90 words correct per minute. And I brought a couple examples of level 30s so that you can look at that and see what they look like. There still is a very small picture support in there, but the picture is not telling the story. It's just kind of maybe enhancing your understanding of the story. And the 90 words per minute is really a good clip. That's pretty fast. But also when we rate their fluency, we also rate their expression with it, not just the rate. So, reading like a robot versus reading in a natural voice and changing your inflection when you're reading dialogue, those kinds of things are things that we'll be working on in class, in their reading group. But that's kind of what that level 30 looks like. And then along with being able to read the words and having good fluency, there's also the comprehension piece. And at level, okay, so the levels here go from 20, the next level is a 24. There's nothing in between there. But it is a pretty big jump from 20 to 24 with what they need to be able to do. So that's why we give them a good few months to get there. And then from 24, 28 is the next level. And when they get to a 28, they have to start writing their comprehension. Anything before a 28 is just oral. I'm asking them questions, they're answering, I'm asking them retell to retell the story, and they start at the beginning and tell me everything that they can remember. And they need to include details and have it in sequence and have character names. But then at a level 28, then they're writing all of that. So that's a big jump for a lot of kids. A lot of them could tell it to you all day long, but then when it comes to writing, and it's like, there was a boy, he went to the store, the end, But that's something that we'll be working on at whole group, and also when they come to me with their reading group or when I work with them individually for reading, we'll be working on writing to show that you really understand what's happening in the text. So that is the reading level chart, and then the third grade levels are on there, so you can see where you're going. Fourth and fifth are on the back, but we don't need those today. So the guided reading format is the next thing on here. Have your kids, I've grouped them according to their reading level for the most part. There may be some kids who aren't quite on the same reading level, but they're pretty close that I have in a group. But it really just hasn't been flowing that great for me this year. So I asked for permission to break them up into individuals. So my plan is that I'll be seeing your kiddo for, it's going to be really short. It's about 5 or 6 minutes that I'll confer with each kid for. I'll see them at least 2 days a week. So kids who are more struggling as readers, I'll see more frequently. But every kid I'd see at least 2 days a week individually. So I'll call them over. I'll give them, a book that's on their reading level that has something in it that they need to be working on. We'll identify a goal that they're going to be working on. I'll listen to them read for a little bit and tell them, man, these are the things that I hear you doing awesome. And then these are the things that I think you need to really make for your targets to help you get to the, to get to the next level as a reader, to be able to comprehend more, whatever it may be. So I'll be working more individually with students this year. I will still pull groups sometimes, but the way our schedule is flowing this year and when kids are being pulled out, it was just, I didn't have the right kids together at the right times enough during the day to get to all the reading groups. So I'm going to try this individual conferring and see how that goes. I've done it once before and I really liked it, so I think it'll work again. But if it doesn't, then I'll come up with another plan. But I will be seeing your kiddo twice a week to help them with, at least twice a week to help them with reading. All right, I already talked about the guided reading books coming home. So for reading, when we're doing whole class lessons and when they're with me in a group or either as individuals, there's really 4 areas that we're focused on for reading. And they're comprehension, accuracy, fluency, and vocabulary. And I've already kind of talked about the comprehension. That's, are they not just saying the words, but really understanding what they're reading? And the way that I can measure comprehension is through, are they able to retell? Are they able to answer questions? Are they able to infer? That's a really big deal. We worked on it a lot in first grade, but in second grade it's even a much bigger deal. Can you figure out what happened from the text that the author didn't explicitly tell you? Using what you kind of already know about life with what the author did tell you, can you determine, for instance, that the character was mad because this happened, even though the author didn't say that? That's a big skill that we'll be working on. So that's kind of comprehension, and then accuracy is reading the right words. So we're working still on breaking down, especially some of those more advanced phonics rules. We're working on that whole group and then individually with individual students and in groups. Then fluency, again, is the rate at which they read and the expression they use. And vocabulary, this can sometimes be one of the most challenging things, especially as they get into these higher books. Often kids are able to read at a level that exceeds what their vocabulary is. So they may read that word and read it correctly, but not really know what it means. So we're working on how can you define a word by using the context, that's what's going on around it, help you figure out what this word could mean. We'll be working with like prefixes and suffixes. We've got 2 little anchor charts over here on the wall. We started those last week, or 2 weeks ago. So we'll be working on using those prefixes and suffixes to help you determine what a word may mean. Helping them try to substitute another word. What other word would make sense in this sentence? And to kind of figure out what a word means. So those are the 4 big areas of focus. And then I have some questions that you can use at home with your kid when they're reading. One side is for fiction texts, and the other side is for nonfiction. These are really great questions that you can ask them to help ensure that they're comprehending. So if you're asking your kids some of these questions and they're not really able to answer them, they're not comprehending, a good strategy to have them do is to stop reading, to go back in the text, and to read again, to reread. Sometimes one of the strategies that some of your kids will be working with on me is that at the end of every page, they're going to stop before they go on to the next page, and they're going to ask themselves, okay, what did I just read? And then they need to be able to tell themselves what they just read, and then is this making sense to me? And if they can't tell themselves what they just read, or it's really not making sense to them, then they need to stop, go back, and read that page again. And one of the things that I tell kids is, as an adult, I have to do that. Especially if, for instance, I get an email from my boss that's really detailed about something we're changing or something new we're doing, I have to read that maybe 3 or 4 times so I can make sure I really understand what I'm supposed to be doing and what her message is. And that's just what good readers do. We go back and reread when we realize we're not understanding. But a lot of kids, that's just not innate in them. They just want to read those words and get those words done, and bam, I finished that book. They're so proud of themselves. So often we have to make it very intentional to stop, tell yourself what you read, go back and reread. And then once they get used to that, usually they don't have to keep doing it for very long because they're just kind of doing it subconsciously. And then when they realize, oh, I wasn't paying attention on that last page, then they just do it naturally. They go back and reread. But if they're not able to answer the questions you're asking them, have them go back and reread. Don't keep on reading. Let's see. Okay, writing is the next piece. Writing in 2nd grade is so different than writing in kinder or writing in first work. And it's really, really fun. I'm loving what we're doing. I'm loving what I'm getting to teach your kids. But it's definitely a big jump from 1st to 2nd. In 1st grade, we were more working on just writing a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And we're still doing that, but now, this year, we're really teaching them strategies to build more of a voice as a writer. So instead of just, a dawn to dusk description of what happened on the day of their birth, or their birthday, they probably don't know what happened on the day of their birth, but on their birthday, then we're working more on zooming in on just one moment, the moment you opened your favorite present. And we're really working more on our craft as a writer. So one of the things that we did last week was, it's up here, we came up with these hooks for writing. And we talked about how a good writer makes the very beginning of their story really interesting. It makes you want to keep reading it. And so we've discussed that action, dialogue, using a sound word, and starting with a thought or question are different ways that you can hook your reader. So whenever we're doing narrative writing this year, like a story, that's something that they'll do for every story before they write. They'll come up with 4 hooks, and then after they've come up with the 4 hooks, they're going to pick the one that they think is the best, and that's the one they'll actually use in their writing. So versus last year where it was just my birthday was awesome. That's just what we jumped right into. We're really building more of a voice. And I put in here the rubric that this is pretty almost the rubric that's going to be used in 4th grade when they do the STAR test. It's very similar to that. So we start it now in 2nd grade. We won't necessarily, we will sometimes be using this to create their grades, but we use it a lot as teachers just to see what our next teaching point is. If my whole class is really bombing it on use of language, then that's the thing that I really need to up my game in my instruction. So the first one is for expository writing, which would be writing for information. Not writing a story, but maybe writing to tell, hey, come on in, Caleb. Writing to tell about something that they've learned, or something like that. So there's the expository rubric, and then the other one behind it is the narrative rubric, and that's for writing a story. So the second week of school, I think it was the second week, it might have been the first week, I can't remember now. The district had every second grade class did a writing sample, and their prompt was write about a time you spent with someone important this summer. And so they all did that, and they worked so hard on that. I was so proud of their writing, and if we had been at the end of first grade, it would have been stellar. But this was the rubric that I had to use for rating them, so everyone scored ones and 1 or 2, which is fine. It's not a problem because we're just at the very beginning. But the goal would be that by the end of the year, we're making 3s and 4s, on our rubrics. But there's just things that we didn't teach them in kinder and first grade that are on this rubric that we're starting on now. I think that even after the few lessons that we've done over the last few weeks, if I were to have them do it again, some of the kids would be making 3s already because they're already really growing as writers. So that's our writing rubric this year. Since we are still at the beginning of the year, I have had to go back to whenever we've all written one sentence, okay, put your pencil down. Point to the beginning of your sentence. Does it start with a capital letter? And there's still a handful of kids who are like, oh no, and they got to go back and fix it. Point to the end. Does it have punctuation? Oh no, and they have to fix it. I mean, really, they should already be doing those things by now, but the truth is 4th and 5th graders still have to be reminded sometimes. And as you know, Facebook people still have to be reminded sometimes. So we're still really working on that. But I mean, the expectation when I take something for a grade is that they already know how to do that. But we still have times that I remind the whole class. Let's see. Word journeys. It's pretty much the same as last year, but I did put a note in here. Some students are on a list that they already worked on last year, and that's because whenever I reassessed them at the beginning of the year, the spelling that they were doing showed that they still hadn't mastered some of those lists that they worked on last year. So if your kid's bringing home words and you're like, we already did these, it's just because they haven't mastered that skill yet in their writing. Let's see. Word wall words, it's pretty much the same, except we don't have as many in the second grade as we had in first grade. First grade, it was insane. 5 words a week was kind of crazy, and by the end of the year, the word wall was there was no more room for anything. So this year, we just have 4 words a week. I will give them a bonus word. So I wasn't here this afternoon. I haven't decided what the bonus word is yet, but when I send out the weekly email, I'll put it in there. But the bonus word, I'm choosing words from the first grade word wall list that I'm seeing spelled incorrectly pretty regularly. So that's where I'm choosing those from. So I think that's pretty much it on word wall words. Okay, we'll move right on to math. So, and I'm really kind of nervous because I have a second grade math expert right over here. How long did you teach?
4 years.
4 years in second grade math, and she's in third grade now. But okay, so the big concepts in math are place value, the counting coins. We're going to be doing addition and subtraction with 2-digit numbers, and then multi-step word problems are they're a really, really big deal. So, up to this point, the word problems we have, it's been you take these 2 numbers and you add, or you take these 2 and you subtract, and that's about it. But now we'll be getting into problems that are, they have to maybe add these 2 numbers, and then there's a number here that they have to subtract, from it. So it could be I earned $22 on Monday, $28 on Thursday, and then I spent $16 at the mall. How much money do I have left? That's one example, but they get even more detailed. Off the top of your head, can you think of a good 2-step problem?
You did pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but now I think they go up to a little bit higher numbers than that.
Okay. So we're getting up, it's definitely like you would expect. It's more challenging because we're in second grade now. But so those are some of the big deals. But this is where really the homework will be really helpful, because the way that math homework is written, is there's concepts in there that we haven't taught yet, and that, I tell the kids, do the best you can, figure it out, see if your parents can help you. But then there's concepts, and it's going to be concepts in there that, like, I taught last week, like we did coins last week, but we're not really coming back and hitting coins again. They're going to be coming up in word problems soon, but we don't really have a time again just to work on counting coins. But those kinds of things will be in that math homework. So that's called spiraling, when you keep going back and hitting concepts over and over, and that's really what will help them a lot. Ms. Stone is the one who puts the homework together, and she did it last year in second grade, and she said her kids who, like, regularly did the homework, not saying, like, every single night, but, regularly their homework was done. Those are the kids who, like, at the end of the year when they took a comprehensive assessment that was over everything they taught, those were her kids who, like, were rock stars on it because they kept having that practice of the concepts. Which, since I mentioned it, last year, whenever we took the 9 weeks assessments from the district for math, I read those out loud. And, we got to take like 3 days to do the 15 problems. But this year, they do all the reading to themselves. I can read a word or a phrase for them that they may need. So I do encourage them, like, don't just guess. If you're not sure about that word, raise your hand, because I can read it for you, And I will usually come over and read it really loud in case somebody else around doesn't know what that word was. But for the most part, they're reading it on their own. And we just have 1 day to do it in now, so we're not able to break it up over the time frame. And I want to say the end of the year one. How many questions are on that one? Do you remember? It's something like 30.
Like 30 questions.
Yeah, like right now the questions, it'll be like 15 questions now at the beginning, but at the end of the year it's a big test
And very wordy.
We'll get there. We'll be okay. Oh man, it's just I hate thinking about it, but that's the game that we play now. So so there's a lot of reading on it, but if they're doing the homework, it really will help them, like, stay keep using the skills that we're not necessarily going to be using the whole group in class. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is how my math block works. So every day I do, it's called a mini lesson over whatever the new concept is that I'm teaching. And the goal of a mini lesson is to get it in 15 to 20 minutes. That's really hard to do sometimes, and as you know, I like to talk, so sometimes I stretch it longer, but I really try to keep it 15 to 20 minutes. And then after that mini lesson, then they do what's listed down at the bottom. They'll go to a math tub. So math tubs are mostly games that there either be concept development, which means a concept we're working on right now, or fluency, which will eventually be like flashcards, addition and subtraction flashcards, because that is a big a change from first grade to second grade. So in first grade, we expected them to be able to solve 9 plus 7, but they could draw a picture or whatever to do it. But in second grade, we're working on what's called automaticity, which means 9 plus 7, and you can just pop out what the sum is. So that's a big change. So they'll spend time working on addition and subtraction and being able to really, like, quickly come up with what those facts are. And then there is a problem-solving tub, and this is where there'll be, like, different story problems that are in there. And in Grand Prairie, we use this problem-solving mat. I'll let you guys look at these. I definitely need these back because they're like, we live by these. And I know you probably don't need them. But so whenever, like, I'll put a story problem up on the board, and the first thing we do is we work on understanding it. We look at what do you already see in here, what do you already know. So if the story is, right now we're still working on sums within 20. So if it's, Caitlin had 9 books, Elliot had 12 books. No, that wouldn't work. 11 books. How many books do they have in all? That's a really, really, really basic problem. But in that problem, they would say, okay, we already know Caitlin has 9. So for us, we write a K and a 9. And we know that Elliot has 11, so we write it, 11, and then we put a question mark, and we'll put something like all together. How much do they have? So Because often kids just look at a story problem and they see two numbers and they pick what they want to do with those two numbers. They want to add them, they want to subtract them, it doesn't really matter what was going on in that story. So this really helps them make sure you understand the problem. And we started this in kindergarten. We've been working on these since kindergarten. In kindergarten, it was like they talked it and I wrote it. And that was pretty much it. And then in first grade, we got to where they would do some of the pieces on their own. But now that we're in second, I give them these mats and they have their whiteboards. And I do it on the board too, but they're all doing it with me. Then we plan. That's where we determine, okay, is this adding? Is this subtracting? And then how are you going to do it? Are you going to draw a picture with base 10 blocks? Are you going to use a number line? What are you going to do to add or subtract? And then we represent. That's where they actually execute their plan. And then solve is where we write like the number sentence that goes with it. And then down here, the solution, it's a full sentence. Like they had blank books together. And then justify is they have to prove it in another way. So like if you did base 10 blocks up here, you've got to do it on a number line. So that's just their check to make sure. And one thing that I keep forgetting that I realized last year was when we're doing them all together, we've done it the right way. So the check always matches what we did. We always say yes. So last year I started doing them wrong on purpose so that when I came down here to the check, I was like, oh, no, that's not the same thing. Because if they get used to it always being right, then they expect when they do it themselves, it's going to be right, So this just has to match this and I'm good. So I've been kind of building in those like purposeful mistakes for them. And so this is something that the goal is that we do this every day. There are some days that we don't, but in a week's time, they're going to do this multiple times in a week. So they really are really, really good at this now. This week, you'll actually see one or two come home next Tuesday, you'll see one or two that have come home for a grade because that's kind of our focus for math this week. So I do the mini lesson, they do a math tub, and while they're doing math tubs, I'm pulling a small group. So it might be, hey.
I was getting the other one.
Oh, okay, I can get it.
Okay.
You got something ready to write on?
Sorry.
It's okay. 3 PC 4YI. But is it somebody who was here last year?
Yes.
Were they on Edmodo last year?
I don't know. She says she's not on. She feels disconnected.
Okay. Well, if she was on Edmodo last year, she doesn't need the code.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm pulling a math group. I'll either be working with them on the current concept that we're doing and maybe reteaching for kiddos who just need to hear it another way, another time, and need some extra practice. Or for some kids, I might be working on old concepts that they haven't mastered yet that we'll be doing, or just maybe the kiddo has the general concept, but in this one context, there's not quite, they've got it figured out, so I'll work with them on that. I'll also be working with them on how do you show your work, like when you have an assignment or you are taking a math test, like how do you do your work and not just pick an answer, but how do you work out the problem? So we'll be working on things like that in math groups. And that's the end of everything I've planned, but I'd love to field any questions that you guys have. I'll be here. I'll be here for 13 more minutes. So, so if you have an individual question you want to ask me or whatever, feel free.